Okay, good evening. It is 6:35 and I'm opening the regular meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission. It's October 10th, 2024. Again, it's 6:35 and we are at the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Meeting Room, Suite 335, 1600 Los Gamos Drive, San Rafael. And with that, I'd like to, I've already called to order roll call by the clerk since we have Mala on Zoom.
Commissioner Kohler,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Rodoni,
Here.
Commissioner Caius, absent. Commissioner Lucan,
Here.
Commissioner Murray,
Here.
Commissioner Bordeaux,
Here.
Commissioner Chu,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Hilliard,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Stephen Burko, Alternate Commissioner Stephanie Moulton Peters, Alternate Commissioner Smith, absent, and Commissioner Hilliard will be acting as a voting member today. And we've met
Okay.
quorum.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Agenda review. Is there any requests to remove or rearrange the items? Seeing none? Okay, don't I need a motion to approve the agenda?
No,
Okay.
not if you're not making any changes to it.
Okay, well, we do that in council meetings. Okay. I guess we're going to go into closed session, but before we do that, we have to take public comment if there's any comment on closed session item.
There are no members of the public present.
And nobody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
All right, then we'll close that and we'll go to closed session and we will excuse
Recording stopped.
our staff and our CMC. You got it? Okay, thank you. So coming back from closed session, there's nothing to report out. And our next step is public open time. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the current agenda. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing or will be placed on the commission's agenda for consideration at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any? I see no one in the room.
There's no one on Zoom.
Okay, and so closing public open time. That was fast. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Discussion and possible action. All items calendared as consent are considered ministerial or non-substantive and subject to a single motion approval. The chair designee will also consider requests from the commission to pull an item for discussion. Does anybody want to pull anything for discussion? Seeing none, is there any members of the public?
Consent. Second.
Okay. I wanted to just check and make sure there was no members of the public.
No members of the public are present.
Okay, so we had first Commissioner Murray, second Commissioner Lucan, or do we have to do roll call since you're on Zoom? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, business items. Okay, moving on to item 3, discussion and possible changes to personnel handbook. I know you'll take it away and then we'll go to our chair.
Yeah, I was going to say I always yield to the chair to present anything they would like first.
Not a whole lot to present here to the commission. I mean, basically, we're talking about changes in laws that Mullen's organization helped us with. There are several cleanup items to condense some of the language, and you saw a lot of markups where things were struck out, and there was a change in the holiday schedule. Beyond that, probably the most substantive thing that requires discussion tonight is the new remote work policy. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have questions for the chair or our executive officer? I just want to comment that Commissioner Lucan, our chair, Commissioner Chu, our staff did a great job and working with Laura from BBK. And I think there was extra work done on the remote work policy and which I asked for and I really appreciate it. I think it will help us make sure that we're free from liability, any kind of issues, and people are free to work at home safely. So thank you. Do we need action on this one?
Yes, we would need to approve all of the amended changes that are in the packet.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
I didn't hear who was
Second.
first.
She was first, I second.
Okay, Commissioner Hilliard, then Commissioner Berto, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next item, which is discussion of future municipal service reviews and sphere of influence study format.
I'm going to yield to our Deputy Executive Officer, who is our MSR guru, to present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Madam Chair. So 3 of you commissioners that are in this room today were with us in 2022 when we did our MSR workshop. We spent a better part of a half day taking a really deep dive into not only what we are doing now, but kind of where we wanted to go in the future. We also took a dive into what goes into creating our MSRs as we are currently have them standing. Through that workshop, we took a look at where we want to take this as we continue to evolve what we're doing here. This round of MSRs has been my first foray into this world. It has been a familiarization for me with a lot of the agencies, being a Marin transplant. So now having come full circle, having familiarity with each of the agencies that we have purview of, we have taken a lot of time over the last year and a half and taken a look at what all of the other LAFCos around the state are doing with their MSRs to make sure that we have a good idea of best practices and also, to put it bluntly, so we can poach what we think that they're doing well. I have taken a look at 56 different LAFCO's MSRs over the last 2 years. As you know, they are a delightful read. So it has been a bit of a lift, but I think we have a structure proposed for you guys that I think will carry us forward in a positive direction. So for the outline that I put in each of your packets, the major changes that you'll see to what we are doing currently, we are going to keep what the commission has recommended to us thus far in changing what we're currently doing and putting a key findings / recommended actions in the front. So when Joe Public picks this up, hey, what really came out of this? That's an easy find. As we move into the actual body of the study, you'll see very similar structure for the agency profiles from what we have been doing. But I think what we are more aiming for this time is less of a expansive look at the history and the formation of these agencies, which I think held a lot of value as just kind of a historical reference for this round, and more into a dive into their services and their financial standing and financial future health, with so much changing around the state consistently, but also trying to have more of a pointed focus at the service determinations, which is really the entire point of a municipal service review as far as state government code is concerned. In that, our proposal is, rather than have a large conglomerate section of municipal service review determinations that can go on for pages and pages and pages, trying to sort through each determination for each agency. Within each agency's profile, we are proposing that we have the specific 7 determinations for municipal service reviews for that agency within their section, as well as the sphere of influence determinations, which previously haven't been something that we put into a municipal service review. So now you kind of get a broader picture prior to coming into that second meeting after we've continued the item, after it's been presented, and you guys get, okay, here's what we plan for spheres of influence. Now you get within the document, here's how we arrived at this place for the proposal for the sphere prior to that meeting, and the public gets to see how we're arriving at this place when we're recommending either affirming or amending a sphere of influence. So that's what we're looking at as far as document structure is concerned. For the structure of the actual work plan, we have made a couple of significant changes that you will notice. One being what will look like a giant section of county service area studies. We have removed all of the county service areas from their regions and just put together a singular County Service Area Study. I know it looks like it's going to be enormous. A lot of them are obviously very small. And we really wanted to highlight the number of dependent districts altogether that we oversee here at LAFCo. So we lumped that together as a singular study, removing that from all of the individual sections. The other big change that you'll see is we have removed the RCD from the West Marin and put it into the multi-regional services study to try to kind of slim down the size of the West Marin study. We felt that was a bit cumbersome this last round. And also the RCD obviously spreads across a good area of the county. And lastly, the removal of individual flood control zones from different regions and just having a singular overarching Marin County Flood Control and Water Conservation District piece to the multi-regional services study. So that is what we are looking at moving forward, and I will turn it back to the commission for discussion.
That sounds excellent. And I'm sure you laughed, you cried, and those MSRs became a part of you because they are so wonderful to read. But thank you for doing all that research.
Thank you.
Any questions of staff? Do I see a pen up? Commissioner Murray.
And in a hand. Jaren, thanks. Wow, review all LAFCOs. That's quite a task. Over the years, we've talked about kind of action items in each. So I think that's what you're saying is that's going to be right up front. What we learned the prior 5 years, what we'll be going forward with. So that's good and kind of front and center on that. And interesting to remove the CSAs and the flood controls and kind of deal with that separately. One of the things we kind of grappled with too is definition of the area being studied. I know sometimes it's difficult with ducks and different census tract areas. So what is kind of the base data? And if there's, in your review of all the other LAFCOs and their MSRs, did you see a standard format or one that may work for us? I think we've talked about before, like maybe just registered voters if we don't have kind of a population count, or what are some commonalities that may apply here in Marin that you saw?
So the majority are going to drill down. The first level that we're going to drill down to is census block group, because once you get beyond that, just the margin of error becomes too large. So the issue then becomes when you have special districts and you have block groups that are overlapping different edges of a special district boundary. Like that is rarely, if ever, an issue with any municipality. It's going to forever be an issue with a special district. I would say that we give the closest estimation that we can in those cases. I think that that's the generality of what we see around the state. And I don't like to give an exact number when I don't have an exact number, for lack of a better way to put it.
That sounds good. Other people have questions? I had one question. First of all, I really like how you've done the work plan. I think that makes a lot of sense, pulling the CSAs out. When I was reading the MSRs, and I did enjoy reading them, it was always confusing to me how that fit. And I think the way you've categorized taking the flood zone districts all out together makes lots of sense. And I think it will be good for members of the public. They may just want to read the first part. But I did have a question, and maybe I'm wrong. So I had a question about, you know how in the beginning you have key findings. So that's sort of like executive summary kind of, right? And I was thinking that maybe a conclusion section that would just be a matrix of the descriptions of the service review, but really short, the service review determinations and the SOIs. So really just a short matrix that says, you know, briefly what it is, not the whole thing. Do you think that's a bad idea? You think, I mean, it's okay to say that.
No, as I told you before, when you're saying matrix, are you picturing essentially kind of what we produce for public comment to you guys afterwards as here's a list of who said it, what they said, our response.
Well, I guess for me, I'm thinking more of a matrix where you say, okay, let's say CSA number 1, CSA number 2, surface area determinations, 10, SOIs, there'll be 3, something like that. So it's just sort of a general sort of consolidation of what you found. Does that make any sense? And if it doesn't, it's okay.
No, so I think and I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding. I think what you are requesting is rather than a matrix of the determinations, more so a matrix of the recommendations and the findings for that agency, because the determinations are always going to be 7 and 5 for every agency. And I can't say that I would be able to
Okay, well,
make those less verbose than they have to be just because of the requirements of the state.
okay.
I'm open to trying, but
Well, we don't need to do that. So I withdraw my comment, but I think one of the goals that we had when we talked about this at the retreat a few years ago was to make the MSRs less lengthy.
Absolutely.
Because there's less regurgitation of all the history. So even though some of them will be long, they'll be a lot easier to read. And if members of the public do want to get into them, here's your thumbnail sketch of CSA 1 or whatever. So it's really simple. I think this is going to be really helpful for us. Other folks have comments? I think we're good. So we need a vote on this.
I think we just more need a direction that you're okay with it. I don't think there needs to be a formal
Well, it
vote.
does say staff recommendation approve the proposed
Okay.
format outline and study schedule. So don't we need that?
Yes, we can do that if you like.
Okay.
So moved.
All right. So Commissioner Hilliard, somebody like to second that?
Second.
Okay, second, Commissioner Berto, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Great work. Okay, now we're going to move on to, oh, this one sounds good. Shared cost agreement between Marin LAFCo, Tiburon Fire Protection District, and the City of Belvedere, and issuance of RFP on financial feasibility and impacts of possible annexation of Belvedere into the district.
All right. So in front of you, just to give you a little quick background, over the past few months, I've been talking with both the City of Belvedere and the Tiburon Fire Protection District about the fact that, as you may recall from the MSR that we did for that region, that Belvedere is outside of Tiburon Fire Protection District's boundaries. They contract and have been contracting since the 80s to have fire protection services. And at some point in time, you got to say, are you going to continue to contract every year? It's not like you're going to create your own fire department. Why don't we merge you in together and have, similar to how we had Mill Valley get annexed into Southern Marin Fire? Why can't we do something similar? I think because of that experience that Tiburon and Belvedere have both become a little more comfortable with the concept. And so in those discussions, they said, would LAFCo be willing to take the lead on this? When Southern Marin Mill Valley did it, they kind of took the lead and we were kind of backseating it in the room with them all the time. But they said, could we be the lead? And I said, I would personally have no problem. Clearly, I'd have to come and talk to all of you about that, but I would have no problem taking the lead. The one issue we would have to deal with is when the agencies take the lead, they pay for the consultant fees directly. In this case, if we're taking the lead, we're the ones making a contract with the consultants. We would be the ones that would have to pay the consultants off, and you need to pay us for the consultants. And so I went to Mala when they said, yeah, that makes sense, we'll pay for that. Mala drafted an agreement that we could utilize for cost sharing where and it gets a little complicated, so I'll try and keep it as uncomplicated as I can. There's 3 sections that could potentially be funded. Section 1 is what I call the LAFCo needed section. It's what we would need in order to do the annexation, all the review and analyzation. And both sides agreed that they would split that evenly. They would pay 50% each of that, and they will reimburse whatever invoice I get. They will reimburse us. I will bill each of them 50% of that thing. There's a second section that is just some questions that the City of Belvedere has. They doing good due diligence. They would also say, what happens if we can't come to an agreement with Tiburon? How do we have fire services? Can we create our new fire department? What are the costs associated with that? So there'd be some work that they would have done. They're going to pay for 100% of that. So when we get a bill from the consultant for that work, I would simply hand it off to them and say, here's this, you pay me. And then Tiburon Fire Protection District had some similar questions as well for their side that they're only going to pay for. So you'll see three parts to our cost sharing agreement, and that's why we have those three parts. So each side is paying for what they need for their portion, and all we are is the collection agency for it, for lack of a better term, to pay off. And so that's what's officially in front of you today. What this will allow us to do is issue an RFP. And so I'm asking for the commission to give authorization to me to issue the RFP when it's completed and done. We're putting some final touches on it. The RFP will be agreed to by both the city and the fire district, as well as LAFCo has its needs. Once again, I'm using a RFP format that was given to me quite a long time ago by MALA. So it has all the legal requirements that we need for our stuff. The only thing that we're filling in is what exactly are we asking for. And so that RFP will be issued once we have all three agencies agreeing. Tiburon Fire Protection agreed to it earlier this week. City of Belvedere is going to have it on their agenda for next week. So the goal is, if we all agree now, by the end of this month, we will have issued an RFP, because we'll have the cost sharing agreement signed. We will issue the RFP, and then in February, I would likely come back to the commission and say, here is what the scoring group for the RFP had. I won't get into who's on the scoring group because I don't talk about those things prior to an RFP process, but we will come back to you with what the scoring panel says. Here's our best option for our consultant, and you will at that point have a chance to review that bid and say, yes, we approve moving forward. Clearly, in order for us to move forward, I'm going to want to get some sort of sign off from both Belvedere and the Fire Protection District that they're comfortable with the consultant that was picked. I'm pretty sure they will be. And then we'll move that process forward and get a study done. So what's in front of you today is officially signing off on the contract that's in the packet and then authorizing me to issue the RFP once it is complete and done.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions of staff? Commissioner Murray?
So Jason, I see we're the lead agency. So kind of advances forward, we have a study comes in, and then will we continue to be the lead agency? Are you foreseeing that one of the agencies being dealt with will become lead agency and provide an application
What I imagine happening is, once we get the report back, in all likelihood, Belvedere and Tiburon Fire Protection District are going to start talking about, okay, so here's what the report says. Does this make sense for us to do the annexation? If so, how do we work out all the financials, similar to what Mill Valley and Southern Marin? So I will in some ways be leading the process, but they'll be the ones really driving it, figuring out all the stuff. And I will be sitting back and saying, did you come to an agreement? Do you agree? Do you agree? Does it fall within what the study says should have been done? If so, give me an application and we'll move forward at that point. So I will technically be in the lead, but in all reality, those two agencies will be driving that post discussion that once the report is done.
Oh yeah, just prior to that, we had Sausalito merging in the Southern Marin, and I believe Sausalito was the driver, and they had to give up 72% of their property tax plus their new firehouse and things, and it was quite difficult to do that, but they did do that. So I'm thinking some of the metrics from these prior studies, and I think you're pretty close to it, Jason. One I didn't see, like property tax, perhaps it rolled up into a more of a financial feasibility, but can you explain what the thought process?
Yeah, that will all be part of what the consultant reviews and studies for us. The reality is, in this case, it's, from my mind, a very simple thing to do, because the city has actually zero assets. They contract with the district right now. So we know how much they've been spending over the last 20 years. We know we can give pretty good projections. What does it look like for the next 10 years? You can pretty easily come up with how much money you need to transfer over. So it's a much simpler annexation than what Sausalito faced or what Mill Valley and Southern Marin faced. Like, it is an extremely simple process once you figure out the numbers and get the stuff correct and accurate. And that's kind of what the RFP will get us.
Belvedere does not have a fire station.
No, exactly.
So it's a little simpler. Commissioner Hilliard and then Commissioner Chu.
So my understanding is Belvedere has no representation at all. And they're getting services through the Tiburon Fire Protection District. There are two other entities involved. I think this is a great start for consolidating. One is the County Services District for Angel Island, also fire protection. They're also, Tiburon is providing that on a contract basis. So you've got Tiburon, Belvedere, the county special area. But if you do two at a time and you can get the rest involved, that's a great start.
Yeah, Angel Island is a slightly different issue. Is not part of this process, but we are working on separately on Angel Island.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, on this agreement, we're the lead agency, so the agreement is between us and people doing the work, and we get reimbursed.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any financial exposure if there's a withdrawal by one or both agencies before the completion of the contract?
Assuming Mala did an amazing job, which I am going to assume, we are covered if the other sides cannot just walk away. Once we have a bill, they can't just walk away from it and say we are no longer interested. There is an out for them, but they have to give us warning, at which point we then tell the consultant, stop doing work, and we're not gonna do any more work for them. But they have to pay us for whatever work has already been done.
Yeah, will there be any obligations beyond that? And that's where I think the window of exposure is.
No, there's no obligations beyond the RFP study. We do allow for additional work to be added if we need to, but all sides would have to agree to that.
Okay. Yeah, I needed that clarified.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear to me in the withdrawal clause. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Rodoni.
Jason, thank you for the report. I think I'm hearing reimbursement, but I just wanted to verify this full reimbursement for staff time also.
No, we are not asking for staff reimbursement. This is for the consultant, as we have done with Southern Marin Fire and Mill Valley, as we've done with several others, because these are member agencies asking for help. The commission has always taken a position that we don't charge if we're trying to, if they're doing something that we've requested, and this is something that we've requested of them, that we don't charge for my time to be there.
Okay. Because it sounds like it's a much different management issue than Southern Marin Fire and more involved. So I would certainly be watching that time. And then when they come back with an application, they have to pay a fee at that point then?
No, because we put it, our fee schedule says if you do something that we requested in MSR, we will waive the application fee.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Let's see if there's any public comment. Anybody on Zoom?
There are no members of the public on Zoom.
Okay, so I'd love a motion. Somebody like
Yeah, I can move that we can authorize the executive officer to sign the shared services agreement and proceed with the RFP.
Okay,
Second
so
that.
it's approve and authorize the executive officer to sign the shared cost agreement and authorize the executive officer to issue an RFP. Just a little friendly amendment. Okay.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Okay, does someone want a second?
Second.
Okay, so that was Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Murray, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, now we're moving on to discussion and possible addition to LAFCo work plan on possible need to update government code 66412D as it pertains to lot line adjustments that cross jurisdictional boundaries to include LAFCo coordination.
So on this is something that Jaron first kind of pointed me to as he was doing MSRs and GIS mapping. And then I got very interested in because it was very frustrating to me that there appears to be parcels that cross boundary lines. You have what has transpired is, as you will see in the staff memo, is there's a small section of state government code that says if you have 4 or fewer parcels that are all contiguous, you just kind of put them together, and no one ever thought to think about boundary lines when doing that. If you're all within the same city, you're all in the same district, not a big deal. But if you're crossing jurisdictional lines, what happens if your garage is in one jurisdiction and your house is in the other jurisdiction? Oh my God, someone got murdered. Which police department is supposed to show up? Is it going to be the one that's the parcel where it occurred? Is it the parcel where your property is officially a part of? It makes ugly looking maps. And so I brought this up at the Cal LAFCo staff workshop and asked other EOs during the EO roundtable, who else has seen this? And several other LAFCO said, yeah, no, we've noticed this as well. It's a problem. We don't know what to do with it. After doing some research and finding that state government code section that describes what actually transpires, I realized we need to fix state government code to change it so you can't do this for parcel consolidation if you're crossing a boundary line so easily. You need to consult with LAFCo and get LAFCo approval to consolidate all those parcels into one jurisdiction because it makes much more sense. It's much neater. It's much tidier. So my question to the commission is, does Marin LAFCo want to take a lead role in doing this? Cal LAFCo is there to help and support, but in the early stages of it, it's really the executive officers of whatever LAFCO wants to see the legislation done that starts the process. And so what I would be looking to do is try and create a, for lack of a better term, a coalition of other LAFCO EOs, work with them, kind of do what we did with the audit RFP where we split up the work and everyone did a little piece of it here and there, and we all came together and figured out how to get it done, which was much more time efficient for all the EOs. And my hope is that I can get other EOs to actually jump on board and join me in trying to figure out, is there a way to fix state government code to say LAFCO needs to be involved? That's step one. Step two is, and the harder one, is there an easy way to try and fix all the things that have already been done and get all these boundaries? I showed you 2 maps in the packet that are examples of that, but there are a lot more of them throughout Marin County, as I've come to learn. And so the goal really is, how do we solve the problem so it doesn't happen again? And then how do we fix all of the issues that have transpired because of this section of state government code? And so the question really for the commission is, do you want me to be spending some time doing this?
Okay, it looks like Commissioner Murray has his hand up.
So Jason and Jaron, thank you very much for bringing this up. The small and mighty Marin LAFCo has a long history, including having special district members sitting on LAFCOs and recently JPA legislation that was actually quite a fight. So just one, I wanted to check with you to see if there might be any opposition to this. And two, certainly I think it's very worthwhile to bring forward if knowledgeable of it and have information that could serve our LAFCO and the state well. So I'm all for this. Thank you.
Without having done much work into it, I can't answer if there's going to be opposition, but my guess is there's probably going to be somebody out there like the real estate industry or something like that that might not be completely happy with putting an extra step in there, but hopefully we can get them to understand that this is actually, like, it's not good to be in 2 different jurisdictions, that all we want to do is make sure you're all in one, and we figure out some way to do that easily would be my goal.
Okay, Commissioner Lucan.
Assuming we get to that point, would we look to proactively make corrections, or would we wait for a property owner to then reach out to us and say, help me with this situation, and then we would be reactive?
I think it depends on if we can get something that is good in state government code that makes it easy for us to do. Like, I almost want to say administratively, then that would be my goal. Is, can we fix it administratively? If there's not an easy way to fix it, then we would probably end up waiting for either jurisdictions to come to us to want to fix it or the property owner to want to fix it, which the property owners probably have zero interest in seeing it fixed because they don't see a problem because they get the services they need and they're not going to be worried about other stuff. Although there's 1 or 2 examples where that might not be the case. Like there's a shopping center in Tiburon Belvedere that the city line goes right through the shopping center over there.
Yeah, I would just caution if we're looking at proactively going out there, there's going to be property owners that have no idea who LAFCO is, have never heard of LAFCO, and wondering, who is this agency and why are they telling me I'm in this city when I think I'm in this city? Does that affect the school district they're in, where their kids go to school? San Anselmo, Ross, is there a property value just if it's in one city versus the other? And so I just caution, if we're going to go out there and try to make corrections when nobody's asking us to make a correction, it might be a slippery slope.
That I would want to see if we can get legislation put in there, and then we could have a discussion about how do we actually move that process. But that would be like hey, we were successful. Now do we want to be active in doing it? In all likelihood, it would be the way I would envision it, at least, and clearly this is just my personal vision, is that there's something in place that says, if the LAFCO wants to do this, here's how they do it. If the LAFCO doesn't want to, because I'm going to guess that there's going to be opposition from some LAFCO saying, I don't want to be looking at GIS maps and figuring this out. We're not going to be involved in this. And there's going to be something in the legislation that says that. So if we can get there, great. And then we can have that discussion. Is it worthwhile for us to do? And how does this impact and how do we discuss? Because you are absolutely correct. We're not going to be impacting school district boundaries, although I could very easily see the school districts, if they hear we're doing this, potentially wanting to join in this because they probably have the same problem we have of what happens to a parcel when it's in two different areas. And I agree with you. The school district fights can be very, very intense in nature. And I want to stay out of those for sure.
But I agree. Being able to make corrections if it's being requested of us to make corrections and it's not contentious, I think we want to have all the tools we can to be responsive.
Okay.
I guess my only comment is I think it's worth exploring it with some other LAFCOs, but I don't want to see us having to lobby at the Capitol for this change. My thoughts are that you work it out with some of your colleagues who want to develop language, and then you bring it to Cal LAFCO to take the lead with their lobbyists.
Well, that's when we get to that spot where it's actually legislation in Sacramento, Cal LAFCO does then at that point take the lead.
Okay.
It's getting the idea around it is Cal LAFCO helps and supports, but they're not taking the lead. It's when it gets to Sacramento and it's in front of the committees and all that process. Yes, their lobbyists take the lead on all of that.
I think before it even gets to Sacramento, that once your group works out whatever you work out, then you meet with Cal LAFCO and have them put it in legislative language and have them take it.
There is a process that we work through with them, and we will go through that process. Absolutely.
Excellent. So any public comment on this item?
No members of the public are present.
I think we need a motion. Do you want me to read it since I've got it open? Authorize the addition of looking to see if legislative or other solution can be implemented to fix the issue of lot lines to our work plan. Did someone want to?
Is that a motion? I'll second that motion.
Well, usually the chair doesn't do that.
Okay, then I'll move what the chair read as the staff recommendation.
Okay, would someone like to second?
Second.
Okay, so that was Commissioner Murray, Commissioner Chu, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Executive Officer report.
All right, as I always do, I will speed through these. If you have a question on one, just raise your hand and I'll stop and let you ask your question. On the first one, budget update. We are currently under budget for the year, which is always good. It's a good thing to start to have the beginning of the year to be under budget. We always try and plan that way. So that is looking good. We have a couple of line items that we are over budget, but those are ones that have high expenses at the beginning of the year, and they, by the time we get to the end of the year, we are under budget with them. And I expect that to be the case for those two line items. Current pending proposals. Clearly, we had no proposals today. We did get in this week the needed information for one of the applications that I believe is in the packet that is mentioned in the report. That will come to us, assuming that there are no objections raised by any of the agencies when they review it. That'll come to us at our December meeting. We also are very close to getting another application in as well. We are waiting for the map and legal description. If that one gets to us before the end of this month, then we will have enough time to do the review period on that, and you will actually have two applications in front of you at the December meeting, but no guarantees on that second one. Sometimes maps can take a little bit of time to get produced, but we are seeing those two there. And also the current pending proposals, we have a whole slew of them that are waiting for the current MSR that Jaron's working on to be approved. So those will likely come up in February, as that's when we're tracking to approve the final MSR for this round. Work plan, a lot has actually been going on. I would say outside of what's already been on today's agenda with the Tiburon Belvedere stuff. 2 nights ago, excuse me, we had a public meeting that we held out in the Inverness area. We are looking to adjust North Marin Water's boundaries. They currently overlap with Inverness Public Utility District, so you should never have two water agencies covering the same territory. So part of a future application that they're in the process of putting together for us is to remove that area. They're also removing what's referred to as the Marshall area, which is an area that back in the late 60s, I think early 70s, and Supervisor Rodoni might be able to give me better, correct me on that if I'm wrong. We're annexed into the district with the hope of in the future serving water. Since then, they've never served water to the area and currently have no plans to. And so we are taking that area out of the district because they've never served water. And it would be part of the reason is when they did the study on it, the fiscal study, it was super expensive because it's just far enough away from any of their current pipelines that for the number of people that actually would need water out there, everyone uses well water, that it just would be way too costly. So they've never actually installed it. And so we're removing that from their area. So that was a big meeting that we had. And so I'm looking forward to getting that. Hopefully we will get that application by the end of this year, beginning of next year, and we'll be moving that one forward when it does transpire. We've also started to have some discussions, speaking of North Marin Water, with Petaluma. North Marin Water has several out of service areas that were approved by LAFCo in the late 70s into the 80s that are up in that general area. And we're starting to have some discussions with them. We're trying to get the meeting set up to have those discussions with them about could the city of Petaluma, who has its own water agency, take over some of those parcels, because they actually currently have lines, it looks like, that go up to and touch some of the OSAs that are part of North Marin Water. So if North Marin can hand those off to them, it would be a more efficient way to have water service in the area. So we've started that. There are a few other items I think that we put into the staff report. I won't read all of those off. I just wanted to give you some highlights of some things that have actually occurred in the last week around some of these items. And then after that, Cal LAFCo update next week. Commissioner Murray and I will be going off to Fish Camp, which is the Tawana Lodge area near Yosemite, for the annual conference. They just came out with their schedule. They actually have some very good sessions this time. I'm looking forward to seeing. Also looking forward to being able to talk to some of my fellow EOs while there. One thing I did want to make you aware of outside of the conference that recently transpired was the executive committee had decided to disband the legislative committee of Cal LAFCo. That was not viewed very popularly by us executive officers. There was like no notice, no information was ever shared. It was a very small group. They took it to their board without, in many of our opinions, giving us proper information as to what they were actually going to be approving that day at the board. So none of us really showed up to say anything. There was a letter that was written. More than half of the executive officers in California said this was a terrible idea. You need to reinstate the legislative committee. It actually has a function. Some of us do acknowledge that it has some issues that need to be worked out, but disbanding it was not the solution to the problem. And the executive board decided to, in a special meeting, reverse itself. And they did that, I think, partly in a special meeting because they knew that we were going to bring it to the conference and they would prefer not to have it at the conference. So they have done that. I did speak at that special meeting and express my concerns over how Cal LAFCo has operated on things like this when they have doing these modernization things, which I support modernizing. If there's things that need to be updated, they do, but they tend to do it behind closed doors and we find about it after the fact. Unless you're in the room, you don't know about it. And I expressed my concerns about that because I know that was something that this commission, prior to all but three of you, when they changed the fee structure around, was also kind of done in a similar manner where those who were in the room knew what was going on. Those that weren't were told about it and it was too late to make any changes. And I expressed my concern then. I expressed my concern on this one as well, that we like open government and that's what we're about. And so our agency that oversees kind of all the LAFCOs and helps us out should also be about open government, even though they're not a government agency. And I hope that they take that to heart. And then the final item is correspondence. You will see in the packet that we received a couple of awards from SDRMA for our good and hearty work, not having any workers' comp cases in a few years and just doing good work otherwise. And so we have those awards in there. And with that, that is the end of my executive officer's report.
Just quickly, I believe on those two awards, we also got sort of a reduction in some of our costs.
Yes, the SCRMA has several things where you can get reductions. The fact that we haven't had a workers' comp case in several years is one of them. If you attend some of the CSDA stuff and do some of their trainings, we get stuff. And so some of that stuff we do naturally. Some of the stuff you kind of have to pay for, and I will be blunt, paying for it. You pay more than what the discount is. So I tend not to do the ones that we pay for just to get the discount because we're not going to get that. But like last year, we sent Claire to the clerk's conference for CSDA so she could learn all about being a clerk. We get a discount for that. The discount is much less than the cost of the conference, but it was nice to get that discount. We won't get that discount next year because there's not necessarily a reason to send her back again because it's a very basic conference, and I don't think you get enough out of it the second time through.
Okay, and I've asked staff to just frame those two certificates. So thank you very much for hard work. Commissioner announcements and requests. Commissioner Murray.
So Jason, you brought up CSDA and getting credit. There's training actually coming up in Centerville next month. So CSDA is having a 4-day conference over here. Just want to let folks know that, particularly if you're in special districts, if you're not aware of it, and good training. And there'll be a special district leadership course that's important for getting the proper certification for each individual district.
Excellent. Thank you. And with that, we will adjourn to our next meeting, which is December 12th, 2024 at 6:30, and it's 8 o'clock, so a little longer than last time, but thank you all for attending.